Hi, I'm Tony Sheldon from Priscilla and welcome to musicalworld.tv.
We zijn hier in de dressing room van Mr. Tony Sheldon. Ik kan hem zelfs aanraken. Hij speelt Bernadette. We kennen hem natuurlijk in de rol van Terence Stamp. Maar Tony Sheldon doet het nog beter in de musicalversie. Thank you, Tony, for having us from Holland.
Thank you.
Who does your nails?
I do my nails.
Really?
I put them on at the beginning of the week and then I leave them on until Saturday night. Because they take so long to dry, I wouldn't have a life. And it takes me 3 hours in here before every performance to get ready. So the nails would make it 4. I might as well just move in here and sleep here as well. Yeah, so the nails, they're my own, and they do break off, but yes, I'm getting used to having them long.
And you shop around Sainsbury and Tesco with those red nails?
I do. I sit on the bus, and fortunately it has not led to any problems.
Well, you're in London here.
That's true.
The past 2.5 years, how has life been to you?
Very kind. I never imagined I would be in the West End. I never imagined I would be playing a woman for 2.5 years. So it's all come as a big surprise. I also never thought I would be in an Australian musical overseas, because Australian musicals aren't common. They're not something that we do terribly well or very often. So this is a great privilege.
But in Australia it was a huge success.
Yes, it was, and it was a surprise success because it was a very, very big budget show, and it was a bit of a risk because the material isn't really for a family show. It's quite adult. But Australia took us to their hearts, and now it would appear London has as well.
In Europe, especially in Holland, Australia is well known because of its entertainment, the TV shows like Sons and Daughters. You wrote some scripts for that.
I worked on Sons and Daughters for a year, yes indeed.
And of course movies. In 1994, half of the country went to Pulp Fiction, and the other half went to Muriel's Wedding and Priscilla.
Exactly.
I read somewhere that you yourself didn't like Priscilla at first.
I was a Muriel's Wedding fan, and they both came out at exactly the same time, and I saw them a week apart, and Muriel's Wedding touched me a lot more than Priscilla did. Also, I grew up around a lot of drag queens because I come from a theatrical family. And the drag queens that I knew were very elegant and very glamorous and very sophisticated and witty. And the drag queens in Priscilla were of a completely different kind. They were very rough and aggressive, and so I didn't really empathise with those particular people.
But when you soften them, don't you take out the heart of Priscilla the movie?
Oh yes, very much so. But I think we had to be aware that the language was relentless in the film. And in a theatre, which is an entirely different experience, and a musical in which we were going to have a lot of kids in the audience, we just had to take a little bit of the relentlessness. That's the only word I can think of. We've now found that if you do take out too much of it, it takes the character out of the show. We found that here, that a lot of people panic about, oh, it's too dirty. And I'm told that for America, the producers who want to take the show to America want it softened even more. Well, I think that is extremely dangerous because then it ceases to be Priscilla.
Yes.
It's something else. And Stefan was making a statement about the Australian character, which, you know, that's the way people do talk. But I do think there is a happy medium to be reached, and my complaint was that the language wasn't varied enough, that there was one scene where I had to say the word arse 3 times, one after the other. And I said, can't we just find another way of saying this that's a little cleverer? So I just wanted to push the creators into more creative ways of using bad language.
Yes. What are people going to see?
What we've done is we've replaced the desert with the songs. Because we can't put that wide open space on stage. We've taken the soundtrack from the film and turned all that music into production numbers. And so we've turned it from a reality-based story in the film into a fantasy. And the songs now come out of this elaborate, glamorous world that the drag queens live in. So we give it the epic feel that we can't put the desert on stage, but we replace it with a sort of a Ziegfeld Follies type look with the music. So I think we've substituted the visuals with the oral.
Another challenge is, I know the Palace Theatre from The Woman in White and Spamalot. We've been there together to it. It's a surprisingly small stage.
It sure is, and we played very, very big theatres in Australia, and in fact that's why we couldn't tour the show more than we did, because we couldn't find theatres big enough to hold the show. Now we are in a theatre which is probably half the size that we were in Australia, which has meant really, really compressing it, and we have to lose people out of numbers, and some of those numbers, like with the cupcakes or the big Gumby shoes, we're literally crashing into each other. But the trade-off was the position of the Palace Theatre, where the gateway to Soho, and the producers very much wanted us to be here. It's a sort of a naughty area, a naughty show in a naughty area.
What do you think the motive was to choose such a wide range of songs?
Apart from having the songs from the film soundtrack, we also wanted some songs that would help tell the story, and so that the show didn't just grind to a halt every time there was music. So Downtown, in fact, establishes the milieu that the central character, Tick, played by Jason Donovan, is living in Sydney, where he's surrounded by junkies and prostitutes and thieves and punks, and we use Downtown in a rather aggressive arrangement of the song to show that he's feeling very alone in a very scary town. Colour My World comes from when we decide to paint the bus. We Belong is a number that bonds the three leads when they're all finally standing on Ayers Rock. So those songs tell the story.
Never forget the cost of our choices, my friends. Come, we're not welcome here anymore.
Is it an exhausting performance for actors and crew members?
Look, it's actually exhilarating. It's such a juggernaut that takes off from the beginning with such pace and speed, and then you don't leave the stage for almost 3 hours. And because it's a road movie, every scene is in a different place, and every scene brings new characters. So it's never boring. And I always find that if I just stay in the moment and never think ahead and just play it as it comes, I go on that trip as a new thing every single night. And I'm quite up by the end. It's, I mean, it's not that I want to go out and go dancing, but I feel it's a job well done at the end of the night, and I can go home ready to move on.
About drag, men wearing women's clothes has proven not to be a trend. What does it add to the world now?
I think it's about telling different people's stories more than anything. That people are now becoming interested in the people behind the dress. I mean, it's interesting that, yes, Graham Norton is playing a drag queen, but Michael Ball and I are playing women.
Yes.
So his is an interesting case because his is simply because the role was played by a woman, but in my case it's the story of a transsexual, somebody who's actually had a sex change. And I just don't think the world was perhaps prepared to hear a story in a musical, a family musical, about somebody who'd had a sex change operation. So I think it probably is about the audiences, the world are becoming a little more open-minded and curious, and we can tell stories a little bit outside of the mainstream.
Yes. In 14 years, 15 years, things have changed.
They have, but it's interesting that a lot of the story of Priscilla is about prejudice and hate, and the fact that these three people leave their home environment where even there they're not totally accepted, but they go into the outback where they are hated and feared, and the show is just as much about those people's response to the drag queens as it is about the drag queens. So that hasn't changed at all, and we're still reading every day in the paper, particularly in London, of a lot of hate crimes against gay people and transsexuals. So I don't see, and of course people being murdered in other countries, executed. So I don't think things are improving in that area at all.
But on the other hand, you can take the bus and the underground with your red nails.
I can, this is true, so I suppose that's one strike for society.
But maybe you look very fierce.
That's a word, yes. Jungle red.
Yeah.
So you can color my world with sunshine yellow each day. Oh, you can color my world with happiness all the way.
There are going to be a lot of tourists from Holland to London this summer. Why should they pick your musical?
It's new. It's not a revival. It's about another country, so it'll be a learning experience. And the costumes and the look of the show is completely unique. Our designers, Tim Chappell and Lizzie Gardner, won the Academy Award for their costumes, and for that they had a budget of $100. Now they have a budget of $2 million, and so their wit and style and originality is there for all to see. And of course the music, as you say, and some wonderful dancing, and it's very, very funny, and I think ultimately very, very moving, very touching. So it's really got a lot to take in.
Where the skies are blue, oh West, this is what we'll do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Franz.
We belong.